Welcome, everyone. I will call to order the Human Service Committee meeting on March 29th at 7:40. We have councilors present in chamber, so I will begin with a roll call vote. Councilor Dumas?
Councilor Dumas is present.
Councilor Irish?
Councilor Irish is present.
And Councilor Wagner is present. And in addition, we have with us this evening Councilor Perlman, Councilor Dissett, Councilor, we still have Councilor Oram, Councilor Landers, Councilor Navin, and Councilor Roby. We have one item on the agenda this evening, item number 21, 1008249, which is a public meeting to allow Marlborough Hospital leadership to present additional details regarding the Mass General Brigham Hospital proposed expansion. This is an informational meeting, just to clarify, it's not a public hearing, so public will not be participating, but are always welcome. If you're watching and have a question, you may contact your, you may always feel free to contact your city councilors and share any concerns. Oh, I thought we lost people. So the public meeting will begin with Marlborough Hospital staff's presentation and followed by questions and comments by the Human Services Committee members, after which I will open it up to other councilors that are present this evening. And I'm really excited that we are joined tonight by Ellen Carlucci, who's the Vice President of Development, Marketing, and Communications, and James Leary, who's the Vice President of Government Affairs. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here this evening and talk to us about this important issue. We really appreciate you being here with us and your concern for our community, especially the residents who are most vulnerable. So I welcome Ellen or Jim to go ahead and share what you brought for us this evening.
Great. Well, thank you. Ellen, do you want me to start with the slides and then join you?
Sure, that would be great, Jim. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So if you don't mind, I'm not sure who's in charge of the slides. If you don't mind advancing to the next one, please. Thank you. So in short, this proposal for Westboro is one part of a larger proposal, Mass General Brigham, which in total is a $2.4 billion expansion plan. It involves 94 net new beds on the Mass General campus in Boston, 78 new beds at the Faulkner campus in Jamaica Plain, and 4 pretty large outpatient clinics, one in Salem, New Hampshire, and 3 in Massachusetts, Woburn, Westboro, and Westwood. Obviously, from the UMass Memorial Healthcare and from the Marlborough Hospital standpoint, the thing that we're really concerned with is the Westboro clinic. So as you can see, it's very sizable. This is not a small clinic. It's 62,000 square feet, right at the intersection of Routes 9 and 495. And the construction cost for just this facility is $76 million. Our concern relates to the next line here is how easily accessible this facility is to higher income commercially insured patients. And the converse of that is that it's not particularly easily accessible to lower income patients, particularly those who may be on Mass Health and anyone who has transportation issues. It is expected to have a wide range of services, much wider than your typical clinic. It's, you know, I like to joke, it's almost like a hospital, but you can't stay there overnight. So it'll have surgery, 11 different subspecialties, primary care, behavioral health, and other services and amenities there as well. Next slide, please. This I won't go through, but you can see these are the 13 towns that MGB lists in its application with the state as being within its primary service area. So again, I won't go through it, but you'll notice really with the exceptions of Framingham, Marlborough, and Milford, and perhaps Hudson, by and large, these are towns that are in the top 20% median income statewide. Next slide, please. So So here's why it matters in terms of accessibility to commercial patients. So Marlborough Hospital is a safety net system, and it's classified by the state through the Health Policy Commission as a high public payer system, which means over 60% of its patients, of its caseload, are public payer patients, Medicare or Medicaid. It's actually around 65%, I believe. Particularly, it has a high proportion of mass health patients, and mass health substantially underpays for the cost of care. So we typically get paid in the UMass Memorial System roughly 60 or 65 cents on the dollar of cost for every mass health patient. So in other words, the more health care we provide, the more money we lose. So it's really critical in a system like that you're able to counterbalance that with other revenue, and specifically from commercially insured patients. If Marlborough Hospital loses a substantial number of commercially insured patients as a result of the MGB clinic opening up, it really is going to impact its fiscal viability. And not only for Marlborough Hospital, but also there'll be a loss of referrals for highly specialized care to UMass Memorial Medical Center. We would expect that those cases would instead go to Mass General Hospital and to the Brigham in Boston, both of which are the two most expensive academic medical centers in the state. Next slide, please. So in terms of local businesses, not only are we concerned on the impact on local hospitals, but we're concerned with local businesses as well. And you can see at the top here, this is a quote from Commonwealth Magazine based upon findings of the Health Policy Commission 1 year ago, where they said as more outpatient procedures shift to partners hospitals, costs overall go up. You'll remember MGB a year ago was known as Partners, and it has changed its name since then. That statement is really backed by the data. And I know this slide is pretty crowded, but MGB is the highest cost system in Massachusetts. And that's really beyond a doubt. That's based upon data from the Center for Health Information and Analysis, also called CHIA, which is the official agency in Massachusetts that tracks these things. So we ran a comparison based upon CHIA data of outpatient costs at Marlborough Hospital versus outpatient costs in the Mass General Brigham system. And I should point out the costs are different depending upon who the payer is, who the insurance company is, and that's because of the way negotiations work with insurance companies. But what you can see here in Blue Cross Blue Shield, the range for MGB hospitals in terms of their price compared to Marlborough Hospital's prices is they range from a low of 30% higher than Marlborough to 105% higher. In Harvard Pilgrim, they range from 14% to 34% higher. And with Tufts, they range from 34 to 77% higher. So some of this is a real apples to apples comparison too. So it includes the academic medical centers who would be on the higher end, Mass General Hospital and the Brigham, but it also includes Newton Wellesley, which would be on the lower end, but still, you can see 34% higher in price than Marlborough Hospital. And for inpatient costs, you can see a substantial difference as well that goes from, through all the different payers, roughly 68% to 137% higher. Excuse me. So referrals for specialized care is also an area where we would see costs go up. If you're in the MGB system, the referrals, and they continue to talk about themselves as an integrated system, that means their referrals will stay within the MGB system. So if you are at the Westboro Clinic and you need highly specialized care, you would likely be sent to Mass General or you would be sent to the Brigham. Again, there are 6 academic medical centers in the state. The 2 highest costs are the Brigham and Mass General. The lowest cost is UMass Memorial Medical Center in Worcester. So essentially, you're taking patients away from a low-cost community hospital setting to drive them into a higher cost setting. And then if they need complex care, you're driving them from a low cost academic medical center to a high cost academic medical center. Our concern on this is for employers and employees. Somebody has to pay that difference. The difference will be paid in higher insurance premiums. And for a city like Marlborough that's done a great job, and I think I said this before, as a Worcester resident, we look to Marlborough and can see what a great job you've done in attracting employers to the city. This could be something that I think can impact that if they see significantly. Next slide, please. So just as importantly, if not more importantly, is the impact on health equity. Mass General Brigham, as we've said, has a disproportionate share of the statewide market, but that's especially the case for commercial patients, where they have about 26% of the market in Massachusetts. They have a lower proportion of mass health patients compared to other systems. And I know you all received a letter from MGB that talked about how they serve more mass health patients than anyone else in the state. And I would say that's probably true, but they're 3 times bigger than the next closest system. So I sort of look at it like Fenway Park saying, we host the most Yankees fans of anybody in the state. It's true, but it's a little bit of an odd thing to say. The real thing you have to look at is what is their proportion. And it's not the same as the proportion as Marlborough Hospital, nor is it the same as UMass Memorial. So as they come into Westboro and come into an area where they're targeting these towns that are in the highest 20% of median income and have the highest commercial shares, we're convinced that they're going to be cherry picking commercial patients away from safety net providers and thereby destabilize the safety net. So you make it very difficult for Marlborough Hospital to be sustainable. The services that they provide to low-income patients on which they lose money will be that much more difficult to actually provide. The hospital will be forced to either demand much higher rates from insurers and therefore drive up cost, or we're going to have to go to the state seeking additional funding, or what we hope does not happen is to face a situation where you have to actually cut care in order to balance the budget. Next slide, please. So this is where there's a bit of a mystery. MGB, you would presume, is coming in to fill a gap. Yet when you look at the the Westboro service area, they conducted a community health needs assessment, and they did a survey of a representative sample from the various towns, the 13 towns that are in the area. MGB gave the individuals who participated 17 different options to select from as the greatest strength of their community. The number 2 most cited option was accessible medical services. So almost 70% of the people who responded to the survey, and again, a representative survey of the region that they intend to serve, basically said this is not a problem. We have access to medical services, and that's a strength of our community. And you can see the quote at the bottom there with one of the individuals who's actually quoted. This is in the application, quoted as talking about how easy it is to get to UMass, how easy it is to get to the other medical centers as well. Next slide, please. So Mass General Brigham, as I said, is dominant in the Massachusetts market. And I won't go over all of the details, but you can see it there. The biggest system, 3 times larger than the number 2 system, B.I. Leahy. And a few years ago, you may recall the Attorney General stopped MGB from merging with South Shore Hospital and also stopped them from merging with one of the hospitals on the North Shore. I think it was Melrose Wakefield. So there's a little bit of a different analysis for opening clinics under the DON rules than there is for a merger. The merger of hospitals is more strictly scrutinized, whereas the opening of clinics normally is not scrutinized as closely. Our point here is when you're opening really 4 new clinics, if you count the one in New Hampshire, but 3 new clinics in Massachusetts that are substantial in size and are as big as these ones are, Essentially, what we think they're trying to do is to go in through the back door to do something that they weren't allowed to do through the front door. So we think an expansion of this nature will really fundamentally change the healthcare landscape here in Central Mass, as well as across the state, drive up costs and impact health equity, not just in the Metro West and Central Massachusetts area, but also in those other areas as well. And the next slide, please. So this is sort of what lies ahead, and this is the last slide. So the application is under review by the Mass Department of Public Health. They've decided to hold 3 hearings, and they did the first one last week with regard to Woburn. The second one is this week with regard to Westwood. And the third one on Westboro is next Tuesday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. That's a call-in where basically you have to hit *1 in order to testify. But written testimony is also allowed up until April 16th. Thanks to all of you who signed onto a request, a 10 taxpayer group request for an independent cost analysis, DPH has ordered for an independent cost analysis to occur. So what we're doing now is essentially arguing to DPH that they need to take the ICA very seriously and look at all the potential cost drivers that could result if they were to approve this. And we're pretty convinced that if they do that, and if it is a thorough analysis, that they'll find this will raise costs, it'll likely worsen health equity, and then it will destabilize safety net providers. So I'll leave it there. I know you guys probably have questions, and I've gone on a little bit long, but I thought that would be a good basic overview of what our concerns are.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's very concise and informative. So I'd like to open it up at this time if members of the committee have questions or comments.
Madam Chair, Councilor Oram.
Did I see Councilor Irish? I'd like to hear from the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Ellen and Jim. It's always good to see you, and thank you very much for your support throughout the year for the city. You know, I'm happy to have this moving forward. Is there anything else besides signing things that as a city or local municipalities and towns can do to support this? Because we are very concerned of raising cost of health care with our neighbors in other communities. Thank you, Madam.
Yes, absolutely. If you're able and willing to testify next week, we would love to have you. As I understand it, the Department of Public Health is allowing elected officials to testify at the beginning of the hearing, but I think we have to provide the names one day in advance in order for them to do that. If you're not able to participate in the public hearing and speak, you do have the opportunity to offer written testimony. So we'd be happy to coordinate with you if that's something that you're willing to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Oram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on the hearings that are being held by the Department of Public Health. The petition that I believe all the councilors signed, has that reached their desk yet?
It has. And in fact, the fact that we're having a hearing is thanks in part to you doing that. So the petition essentially asked for a hearing and for an independent cost analysis, both of which DPH is doing. So I want to thank all of you for that, because if those petitions were not filed, this could have gone forward potentially without a hearing.
Thank you for that. And if you feel participation's needed, I'll reach out to you tomorrow, most likely, to see how to go about that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Oram. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. At the beginning of the presentation, you listed through the cities that are part of this analysis. And I was just glancing through it, and it's like, oh, wait, Marlborough has a hospital. Milford has a hospital. Framingham has a hospital. What's wrong with this? I mean, Are there other hospitals in this area aside from those three? That's bad enough, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, it's funny. When we look at it, not only the hospitals, but the number of clinics in the area, and I wish I had it in front of me. We had done an analysis within a 10-minute drive, a 20-minute drive, and a 30-minute drive. And I think it was within the 20-minute drive, there were something like 47 different providers. And so that includes obviously not just hospitals, but also clinics of various sorts. And I think that's reflected in the answers in the survey, that people feel like they're already pretty well served in this region. Right.
Thank you. But yeah, I don't see the added value to this. I have family that's on the South Shore, and South Shore Hospitals in Weymouth, they opened up this huge expansion, just focus on cancer across the street, but that's a different game. That's a specialty type focus. This proposal seems to be more of a general service.
It is, and I should address, I know the letter that was addressed to you by MGB said, well, what we're really, what UMass Memorial and Marlborough Hospital are really concerned with is their ambulatory surgery center in Shrewsbury. And sure, we have concerns about that, but we have concerns about Marlborough Hospital, and we have concerns about UMass Memorial Medical Center, particularly about Marlborough Hospital, because this is not just a surgery center. This plans to have, I believe it's 11 different specialties, plus primary care, behavioral health, a variety of things that are already provided very close by other providers. And there's a finite need for healthcare. So that means, in our view, that they're going to be taking patients from other providers and getting them into the M system.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of our concerns also, and thank you again for your time and your interest, is the impact that this could potentially have on services at Marlborough Hospital, including behavioral health. We have a 22-bed inpatient unit. We have a partial hospital program that provides outpatient services to folks who are suffering from behavioral health issues, mental illness. Those services barely break even, but it is very, very important for us to be able to provide these services. It's very, very important that we are able to serve those individuals who really need the help that we're able to provide. If we are forced to make some very challenging decisions because our margin right now is so small, how are we going to continue to be able to address the behavioral health population that really needs our services? And that's something, particularly on the inpatient side, that's something that we have to be aware of. It's something we have to be aware of in our emergency department, where on any given day we have folks who are in there who we're waiting to place. It brings to light the importance of being able to provide other services that generate more revenue for our organization to help counterbalance or counteract some of the services that we feel are vital to our mission that aren't about making money.
Thank you for that, Mr. Carlucci. Councilor Roby, did I see your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My hand was up. Actually, I was going to play devil's advocate and discuss the point that I think Mr. Leary brought up about the facility that UMass is built in with Shrewsbury. And I guess I will kind of take that devil's advocate a step further. I know as a resident of Marlborough, I fully support the hospital. But as a resident of Marlborough, I also belong to a doctor that is not licensed at Marlborough Hospital, and I would never be there as a patient. And I'm sure that everybody in Marlborough would agree with the comment that was shown on the slide that, yes, we're lucky that we do live close to Boston, so we can go to Boston for anything that we need to go to. We could also go to Framingham. We can go down to Milford, where I did have some outpatient surgery. So I think the ability to go where we want to go for our primary care doctors and then get referred as needed is up to the individual person. So why not let them have a choice? But I do understand that it does impact Marlborough Hospital as a hospital. The facility, as they said in Westboro, is not going to be a hospital. It will be an outpatient facility, just like the one in Shrewsbury. So I do understand the battle, and I wish you the best of luck, but I also kind of understand the bigger picture, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. And I guess where I would point out some distinctions is so our surgery center in Shrewsbury is that. It's a surgery center. It doesn't have the level of specialty services, but it's really more what our concern is. And I agree with the point about patient choice, and I think that's a good one. What our concern is that this proposal, if implemented, would take away so much from the other local providers that it puts them at risk on survival. So I don't think there would be the degree of patient choice that there is now. And to give you an example of why I believe that is what Mass General Brigham has talked about and discussed in the letter that they sent, was that the primary motive of this is to take care of their existing patient panel. And they say that there's a patient panel of 44,000 in this specific region. And we have questions on how they define it. But nonetheless, they say in Woburn that they have a patient panel of over 103,000. They're building facilities that are the exact same size to the square foot in both locations. I think it's 62,000 and I want to say 48 square feet. How do you serve 103,000 and 44,000 with facilities of the same size, unless your true intent is to have a major growth strategy that takes patients away from some of the others? So if they were coming in, you know, if they were coming into a region and taking the same level of safety net care and were filling a need where there is a shortage of services, our view would be different. But in this case, that's really not what they're doing.
All right. Council Landers?
I'll be quick. I think that's what bothers me. Nowhere have I heard, you know, Mass General talking about the shortage of services. We have plenty of services out here, you know, starting right with Marlborough Hospital. And then if they can't handle you there, they'll ship you up to UMass on Belmont Street or the major hospital. You know, if it's a real serious situation, burns or something like that, they'll ship you to Boston. But nowhere have they mentioned that the people in the greater Westboro and Marlborough area, you know, we're not getting good care, and if the local hospitals can't handle a situation, they don't hesitate to, you know, medvac you out to Worcester, or in a few situations I've seen the helicopter head east. So it's just, I think they're just trying to, well, look at the areas they've picked. I get a kick out of Woburn there. They're going to Woburn. You know, that Leahy Clinic, that's not a bad hospital there. You know, it's amazing what they're taking on. I don't understand it. Personally, I can't see them getting approved. I really don't.
Yeah, and it's a similar dynamic in Woburn. Melrose Wakefield Hospital was very outspoken. Winchester Hospital was very outspoken. And they're essentially saying the same things that we're saying in terms of what they're afraid the impact will be on them being able to provide for their communities.
I'm all set, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Hussain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. First, lessons learned from the hearing last week. Are there any insights you can take out of that?
Yeah, there are, and there was a lot of community concern. I think from MGB, the talking point was essentially they're taking care of their existing patients where they live. But again, there was the opposition from the other side that was saying, well, you're really going to come in and take some of our patients. The other issue that was brought up, and I think is fair, is it's easier now than in the past for hospitals to collaborate. And so like for an MRI scan, for example, to be done at Melrose Wakefield and sent to MGB if somebody needs to go there, because they're using the same technology, they're using the same, it's called EPIC, the same patient record system. So there's actually opportunity to collaborate across systems now that didn't exist before. And I think that's something that can happen here, yet they're coming into the city instead. But I think it's a very consistent theme. You have longstanding hospitals in those communities like Melrose Wakefield and Winchester Hospital, and I think it's not Lawrence General, it's Lawrence Memorial in Medford, that are very concerned about how this is going to impact their ability to take care of their communities, just like Marlborough.
Thanks, Mr. Leary. And the second question is, what is the actual expected outcome of the public hearing on April 6th? In other words, what's a success? What do you expect the outcome to be?
You know, it's something we don't expect to know immediately, but what we're trying to stress at this stage is now that the Department of Public Health have said they're going to do an independent cost analysis, what we're stressing is that it should be very, very thorough. And so I guess we won't really know what the answer to that is until they do it and they come out with a report. But by way of example, we don't want them to simply look at what MGB is saying and say, gee, if you take a patient from the Brigham and move them to Westboro, it will be lower cost. We agree that will be lower cost. If that were all they were doing, that would be one thing. We want them to look at how many patients are likely to migrate from Marlborough Hospital and other local providers. How much does that drive up cost? How much does that destabilize the hospital? How does that impact safety net care? And also the other issue in terms of cost, when some patients do move from Mass General or the Brigham to Westboro, that frees up space in those hospitals, the 2 highest cost hospitals in the state. How much is it going to cost when they fill up those spaces with patients? So we're hopeful with enough people sort of saying those things that DPH will insist on a study that actually delves down into those items. That we would consider a success, because I think the results of such a study would show that what we're saying is accurate.
Thank you, Mr. Leary, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Thank you. I'd like to just add, I looked and did some research, and I think it's just so important when we start looking at data, not all patients are the same. And looking at a patient's resources, a person who's unhoused is not going to have the same outcomes post-procedures or and medical care. Insecurity with housing, access to what kind of resources a person has. Even can you get your prescription filled? Do you have the money to do that? So when we look at outcomes, it varies so much. So I did some research with I like the research that comes out of the Lown Institute, and was impressed to see, and I just wanted to give you that, you know, I really appreciate the work that's being done at Marlborough Hospital. The Marlborough Hospital ranks 94th out of the country in terms of value of care for a safety net hospital, and 9th in the state, which is pretty impressive. And I looked at that in comparison to like Milford's 86th and 7th, and Mass General ranked 394th in terms of value in the state, no, I'm sorry, in the country, and 28 in the state. And that you also got an A+ looking at civic leadership, value of care, patient outcomes. So the services provided are really top-notch and quality care in this wonderful resource we have right here in our own city. And I worry about things like if this in fact happens and the services Marlborough Hospital is not able to provide, it's not even an option for a lot of people because there's no public transit to get to Westboro. So it's already, the disparity in health services is so vast already, and many people without those means wait till they're just in dire condition to even seek medical help, which then compounds the complication and outcomes. And that's very distressing to me to be moving in the wrong direction. So I just really appreciate the time that you took to be here with us this evening and really go through all the details with us so we make sure we're considering this from fully from the information that's available. One question I had, can you share, was there any outreach, like what was when this was, at some point this was just an idea, did Mass General Brigham have a conversation with you? Has there been any, because the letter actually concerned me in referring to disparity is, possibly imagined. So, I mean, health disparities are very real. What kind of outreach was there? Can you talk about how the care for our most vulnerable population was taken into consideration? Were there any conversations to that effect?
Not that I know of. No, we received kind of a heads up shortly before they filed, and I should say we knew about a year ago that they were considering filing, and they gave us a heads up then. When COVID hit, excuse me, the DPH stalled all determination of needs filings for a period of time, and then once they opened it up, we got a heads up that they were filing, but not any substantive conversation that I know of about sort of collaboration or like you said, trying to take strategies to take care of the most vulnerable.
Thank you. So if there are no further questions, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to be here this evening to bring this to our attention. I know we will follow through and hopefully be all present at the hearing for everybody that can possibly attend on the 6th. That's all I have this evening, so at this time I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Was there further comment? What am I hearing?
No, Madam President, motion to accept and place on file this communication.
Oh, thank you. Motion to accept and place on file. Thank you. Is it you made the motion? Okay, so then seconded. Thank you. Yeah. So seconded. So a vote in favor. I see 3. We're all in chambers, so we don't have to do a roll call vote. 3 in favor, so that motion passes. And then now I invite a motion to
adjourn.
And seconded, so we are adjourned at 8:20. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.